Well, just so you know, Oscar, I was 12 when you came to this community, so not to date you or anything. Having heard
you
what
need to remember that, too.
Okay.
That we're your elders.
All right, all right. Well, having heard what Oscar just said, I'd like to actually go to TJ. How is the experience at, I mean, Malone is categorized as a community cultural center as well. How does your work differ, or your audience differ from what Oscar just talked about?
Well, I think historically, going back to 1932 when the Urban League was first constituted, and then the evolution into the Malone Community Center in 1955, Malone Center played a very similar role. At that time, there was still discrimination, overt discrimination in this community. There were certain places in Lincoln, Nebraska, where African Americans could not own property. The area that's immediately surrounding, even where Malone Center is currently located, used to be the African American neighborhood. There was a lot of African American families that owned homes and lived in that neighborhood. And so the Malone Center at that time was the cultural, social, civic hub of the African American community. Served as a kind of a liaison role at that time. Now, that our reality has changed some because the African American community is now dispersed throughout the city, so we don't have like an African American neighborhood, so to speak. But many of those folks are still very connected, still have a rich, it has such a rich history, and people have such fond memories of what the center was to them, going back to the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, 60s. And so I think there's still some disenfranchisement of African Americans in this community. It's one of the few organizations that's led by and directed by African Americans. We own it, and so there's still until our youth graduate on the same numbers in the same proportion that European students do, until our youth aren't being incarcerated at the 2.5 times the level that other kids are, we still need a Malone Center. Our Juneteenth is an opportunity to share our culture, but there's still some human services needs that we're very concerned about that are on the forefront of our mind and our activities every day in terms of making sure our kids are working to help our kids graduate and help keep them out of the juvenile justice system. And we see that as a critical role that still needs to be played.
Thanks for that. We only have about 4 minutes left in our show. I would like to ask a question first to Amy, and then I think we'll finish up with Thomas, since he's everybody's elder that's here today. Amy, my question is, where do we go from here? I mean, what are your desires? Where do you hope to see El Centro? Is it with Malone in the future? Is it in a separate place? What are your thoughts?
We definitely have liked this co-location and this collaboration so much, Josh, that we certainly see ourselves in the future. When we project out, we see ourselves always working together. We see now some of those positive aspects of joining arms, of linking hands and saying, okay, this journey, we can support one another. We can go forward and we bring then not just one group of people with us, but 2 other groups of people who begin linking arms, and then those links, they just keep extending out. This has been wonderful. It has been wonderful. We certainly see ourselves building programs collaboratively and serving a bigger, broader transect of society. So that's definitely where we're headed.
Amy, can you give us do you have a web address that you want to share with our viewers as well before I head over to this side?
Well, our website is under construction currently, but I will go ahead, if you did want to go and visit elcentrodelasAmericas.org. That's ELCENTRODELASAMERICAS.org. elcentrodelasAmericas.org. That would be great.
Okay. And Thomas, I'd ask you the same question. You've served in different capacities in our community. You've been a volunteer for different boards. You, like you said, started out your life at Malone Center after college. Where, in your opinion, not necessarily in the Malone Center's board's opinion, because you couldn't speak for all those people, but where do you see this collaboration going into the future?
Well, I think there'll always be a need for El Centro. And only El Centro can, Latino people, can nobody do Latino people better than Latino people. No one can do African American people better than African American people. But there is also some common grounds where the two cultures meet, and will always meet, have always met, whether people are aware of it or not. I see that continuing, and I don't, if there's a future building, I don't know why we couldn't be in the same building. We've talked about it as a board, as we look to our vision. We just had our, after 5 years, we've had our strategic planning. It's continued, the process will continue. We invited Amy and Oscar as part of that because we wanted them to see how we do this and kind of talking about our vision and so forth. We don't know what the future is, but we're open to it because we know that resources are limited. We are nonprofit, just as El Centro is, and all of the ethnic centers are. So we know because of limited resources, it's better to collaborate. The example I always give is I'm an employee of Lincoln Public Schools. I report to the superintendent of schools. And when we build buildings, if you notice, many of our buildings are in collaboration with the city because those buildings are set, and I use that analogy because with limited resources, we have to collaborate. It's out of necessity, but it's also, it's important that the ethnic communities learn to walk together, respect each other, and grow and share culturally. That is important for our young people because if we look around other cities, you don't see that. And I would be remorse if I didn't say this. The way we can do this is with these two fine executive directors. This is working because it's like anything. An organization is only good as its leadership. And we have two fine directors here, and with their leadership, I see us walking and collaborating in the future.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our show. This is the Watchful Citizen, brought to you by the Lancaster County Democrats. You can find out more about El Centro de las Americas and the Malone Center at www.lancastercountydemocrats.org. And I, too, would like to thank the directors for the time that they spend. Neither of these people are working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. They're working a lot more than that, sometimes twice that amount of time. And I would also like to say thank you to Oscar and Thomas, who are volunteers on the boards of these organizations and also don't work your traditional 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. So thanks for tuning in and have a great day.